Okay, hello there. Thank you for watching this short video. I wanted to do something about weight loss, some things that I've learned that I'm hoping could help someone. And I wanted to start out with a question. And the question is, if you're watching this and maybe you feel like you could lose some weight, or maybe you're watching it for someone else, my question is, why are you overweight? Why are you overweight? That's my first question. And you might say, well, I'm overweight because I have a poor diet, I don't eat the right things, or I eat too much of whatever I eat. Or you might say, well, I'm overweight because I'm not active enough, I'm too sedentary. But I want to broaden that back or pull back on that a little more and say, what is the mechanism? What is the broader reason why someone is overweight? There's a verse, it's Psalm 139, verse 14, and it says, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And our bodies are designed in such a way that there's a mechanism and there's a reason why we put on weight. The reason is that our bodies are designed in times of abundance to store energy in the form of fat, so that in times of scarcity, when that energy is needed, our bodies can release it and use it. So it's amazing to think, first of all, in the fact that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that even our bodies, when we start to put on weight, where does it start usually first, right? The midsection, and then the butt and the thighs and things like that. So it's this middle section that starts to grow first. And then over time, if we keep gaining excessive weight, we might see it in the arms and the lower legs and things. But it's our bodies know that if you're going to carry this stored energy, put it in a place that's, at the center of gravity where it's most easily carried first. But it's there as an energy source. That's the purpose of it. So it's in our current culture where everything is so abundant, we really don't think in terms of not having enough to eat. We pretty much have everything at our fingertips. But if you think about hundreds of years ago when they were living off the land and they might kill an animal like a deer, and that might give them some food for, a good couple days, but then they might go 3 or 4 more days where they're just foraging and they have very little to eat. And their body was using the stores that it had on it to help them survive. Another way to think about it is if you skip a meal, you don't immediately collapse because your body has the stores that it can use to draw from until you get that next meal. So we store fat as an energy source. So now my second question is, think of yourself, or maybe the person that you're thinking of when you're watching this video and you want to help, for instance, and think how overweight, how much could I lose? How overweight am I? How many pounds do I think I need to take off? It might be 10, 20, 30, 60, 70 pounds. It could be anything. But let's just take a minute and think about, just for simplicity, let's think about 10 pounds as an example. Let's just say that you were carrying around, you were overweight in your own mind, you were feeling like you were carrying around 10 pounds too much. That's 10 pounds of fat, 10 pounds of stored energy. Okay, so I have this here as like some kind of an example, and this would represent like a pound, let's say, of fat. So if you're 10 pounds overweight, you would have like 10 of these that you're carrying around. Every pound of fat that you have is about 3,500 calories worth of energy, every pound. So if you were carrying around 10 extra pounds at 3,500 calories each, that would be 35,000 extra calories of stored energy that you have, and your body has it there to use in times of scarcity. So you have 35,000, if you're 10 pounds overweight, calories. Now, an average person, just using simple numbers, if the person is average activity and average size and everything, just simple numbers, let's say they burn about 2,000 calories per day. So if you have 35,000 calories of stored energy on your body, that's roughly 17 days or a little more of energy. In theory, if you just stopped eating and you just went to water, provided you weren't on medication and you were reasonably healthy in other areas and things, you could live over 2 weeks on the 10 pounds of extra body weight that you're carrying. So those are just some basic principles that we are designed to store fat and weight as an energy source when we have abundance. And we know that every pound that we have that's over our ideal weight is going to give us over a day's worth of energy, maybe closer to 1.5 to 2 days worth of energy. So now what I want to do is share the real key part that I learned that I thought was very important and relevant. And I want to give credit to Dr. Jason Fung, F-U-N-G, Jason Fung. He's a kidney specialist. I think he's based out of Toronto, and he can go much deeper and broader and explain this all much better than I can. And he's on YouTube. You'll be able to find him very easily. But what I want to talk about is insulin. Insulin. Now, for me, when I think of insulin, or when I used to think of insulin, I thought of diabetes, blood sugar. But it turns out that insulin is the primary hormonal driver of our metabolism, and it's the primary hormone that tells our body whether to go into a storage mode when we're in times of abundance. When we have abundance coming in, it tells us to go into a storage mode, in other words, put on fat, or to go into a burn mode, to burn the fat as energy. Okay, so if the insulin level is high, that's a hormonal signal to the body, to the cells in the body, that there's abundance and to store, to put on fat. If the insulin level is low, then it signals the cells in the body to discharge the fat and burn them as energy. So the reason that this is important is because when people try to lose weight, they often focus on the amount that they're eating, okay, or maybe the quality or types of foods they're eating, which there is certainly something to both of those things. But they don't necessarily think about how important insulin is, and really that's the controlling factor. So here's an example. Let's just say that you had that 10 extra pounds of weight that you were carrying around, and that equates to 35,000 calories. If you were to just fast, if you were to just stop eating and just drink water and just let your insulin level go down, eventually as that insulin level goes down, it's going to hormonally signal your cells to start pulling energy from your fat stores. Now your body is smart. It knows that you have 35,000 extra calories available. So it knows that there's plenty of energy available. So your metabolism is going to stay right at the level it's at, and your body's going to start pulling those calories. And if you need 2,000 calories in a day on average, it's going to pull 2,000 calories, and your metabolism is going to stay right where it should be. If you try, so here's what happens, and this is what I learned from Jason Fung, and I think it's why a lot of people get distressed and discouraged when they're dieting. What you do is you say, okay, I want to diet. I'm normally eating 2,000 calories a day. I'm going to cut that back to 1,500 calories. So you cut it by 500. You're like, okay, I'm taking in less calories. I'm going to lose weight. But that 1,500 calories is still spread through the day, and you're kind of grazing, and your insulin level is not really ever going down low or low enough. Now what happens is because your insulin level is not going low enough, your body's not throwing that switch and going into fat burning mode and going into the stores that you have on you. Because your insulin level is not quite going low enough or long enough, what your body is doing is it's saying, okay, now I've got 1,500 calories coming in, and that's all I've got to work with instead of 2,000 calories. So now my metabolism starts to slow down. Your body starts to slow down its metabolism across the board because it's a survival mechanism, because the switch isn't thrown, the insulin's too high, and you can't get into the stores that you have on your body, so it's only limited to what you're bringing in. And since you're bringing in less than you normally were, your metabolism starts to slow down. And what does that do? That makes it harder to lose weight, right? Because you're burning less, even in a sedentary state, you're burning less energy or less calories. So what you want to do is you want to try to get your insulin as low as you can for as long as you can. So what would be some ways to do that? Well, one way would be to just seek out foods that are lower insulin drivers, right? So you need protein and you need fat to survive. You don't really need carbohydrates, technically. Proteins and fats don't drive insulin as high as carbs do. So, for instance, I brought this stick of butter, which is obviously very fatty, but it's not going to be necessarily. Just pretend this was a low fat diet bar. This very likely might have less of an impact on your insulin level than this does. So even though you look at this and you go, oh, this is fat, this is going to make me fatter if I eat it. In actuality, this may make you tend to store more fat, where this may not, because it's going to keep your insulin level lower. So part of it is what you eat, but the other part of it is when you eat. And so what can you do? Well, you may have heard the term intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting simply means you take a certain window of time that you have in your day and you compress your eating and your drinking, for the most part, into that time. So you might make it 8 hours, or it might be 10, or maybe even to start it's just 12 hours, because normally you might be eating 14, 16 hours a day, and you're like, well, I'm going to cut that to 12. But a lot of people like to do 8 hours. So they do all the eating that they're going to do in 8, and they're going to eat what they normally eat. And that's the beauty of it. You're putting it in that window of time, and you're still allowing yourself to eat some of the things that you enjoy, some of the things that satisfy you. You don't feel like you're starving yourself. But what you're doing is you're putting in that 8-hour time, and then the other 16 hours of the day, which part of that is when you're sleeping, right? Maybe 7, 8 hours, 9 maybe. So a lot of that is sleeping time, which makes it easier. But the other 16 hours of the day, you want to do essentially fast if you can, which means just don't drive your insulin level up. So what would you have in the other 16 hours? You could have water, of course. Sea salt is good if you put it in the water because it's good for electrolytes. Black coffee, black tea, green tea. So during your fasting window, if you want to call it that, your 16 hours, you limit yourself to water, maybe with some sea salt, some black coffee, black coffee, black tea, green tea, and don't use the cream and the sugar and all that in them. Just keep them like they are, and that will keep your insulin level down. And then in your 8-hour window, you eat kind of normally. You eat the things you enjoy, in moderation. And what you'll find is that your metabolism is going to stay up because your body's saying in the 8-hour window when you're eating, you're getting plenty. And when you're not eating and the insulin level drops down, your body's going to throw the switch. It's going to go into your fat stores. And you should see a better result in your weight loss. So again, that was kind of like a big eye-opening thing for me. When I heard it, I thought it was really made a lot of sense. And I really hope that it helps you. I really encourage you to check out Dr. Jason Fung on YouTube and get his perspective on it. And I hope this helps you, and I wish you the best in your weight loss journey.